Hello everyone and welcome to my BMB Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope Logan stood in the sun-dappled garden of the Forrester estate, the white lace of her gown brushing across the groomed grass like a whisper. The air smelled of roses and orange flowers, as if it were a lovely day. Liam Spencer waited at the altar, his smile warm and confident, as it had been since the day he proposed again, after all the years' blunders and almosts. This time they declared it would last forever. But forever has a way of shattering when the past refuses to be buried. The officiant's voice, warm and steady, echoed throughout the audience. If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. There was a stillness. A breeze rustled the flowers on the archway. Hope's fingers tightened around the bouquet. Liam's gaze met hers, soothing and kind. Then came the voice. Low, raspy, and unmistakable. You can't marry him. The words cut through the garden like a razor. Guests turned. Gasps reverberated. Hope's heart stopped. Thomas Forrester stood at the side of the aisle, untidy, his eyes filled with something between grief and rage. His suit was wrinkled and his tie was out of place, as if he had driven through the night to get here. Dirt streaked over his sneakers. His hands trembled by his sides. Thomas! Hope gasped, the name scarcely audible. Liam rushed forward and shielded her. What the hell are you doing here? Thomas did not look at Liam. His stare was fixed on Hope, raw and pleading. I needed to come. I have to stop this. Steffi Forrester stood up from the front row, her face blanched. No, Thomas. Not like this. But he was already heading down the aisle, as if drawn by an invisible thread. The guests separated like water. Brooke Logan gripped Ridge's arm, her eyes wide with horror. Hope's voice crackled. You've departed. You said you were finished. You relocated to New York. I lied, Thomas stated, pausing a few feet away. His chest heaved. I figured I could let you go. I assumed if I kept away you'd be content. But I can't. I can't watch you marry him knowing what we had, and still have. Liam clenched his jaw. You do not get to do this. Not today. When Thomas finally glanced at him, the pain in his eyes was palpable. Do you think I want to be here? Do you think I wanted to come back and spoil things? I tried to stay away, Liam. God, I tried. Every night I see her face. Every morning I wake up and reach for her. She's in my bloodstream. She's in my bones. Hope said as the bouquet slid from her fingers, spreading roses across the white runner. Thomas, please? He inquired, his voice breaking. Can we pretend I don't love you? Could you please pretend that the past year did not happen? Nights in Paris. You gazed at me as if no one was looking. The way you said my name like it was a prayer. Hope sobbed. Memories flooded her mind. Stolen moments in the design studio. The warmth of his hands on her waist. The way he muttered her name as if it were the only thing that mattered. She had terminated it. She had picked Liam. She assured herself that was correct. But now with Thomas standing there, devastated and desperate, the truth pushed its way up her chest. I was going to tell you, Thomas murmured softly to her alone. Before I departed, I was prepared to battle for you, but you seemed so happy with him. I walked away. I thought that was love letting you go. But it isn't. It's just cowardice, Liam said with steely resolve. You are too late, Thomas. She's mine. Hope shuddered at the statement. Mine. As if she were an object to be claimed. Thomas took another stride. Is she? He asked quietly. Look at me, Hope. Tell me you're not feeling it. Tell me you don't remember how we burned. Her gaze met his and the world faded away. Everything vanished, including the guests, flowers, and vows. There was only Thomas and the ache she had buried so deeply that she almost believed it had vanished. I do, she whispered. I do remember. The garden fell silent. Liam's face wrinkled. Hope? She turned to face him, tears flowing down her cheeks. I apologize. I thought I could forget. I assumed that if I selected you that would be enough. But it's unfair to you. It's not fair to any of us. Thomas's breath caught. You don't need to do this alone. We can work it out. Together. Hope gazed between them. Liam, solid and compassionate, The man who had forgiven her 1,000 times. Thomas, damaged and strong. The guy who had loved her even when she couldn't. I can't marry you, she said, Liam, the words tearing her apart. It is not like this. Not while my heart is still his. Liam glanced at her, the spark fading in his eyes. You've chosen him? After everything? I'm choosing the truth, she said. The reality is I've never stopped loving him. I simply stopped admitting it. The officiant cleared his throat nervously. Guests shuffled and murmured. Brooke wept quietly into Ridge's shoulder. Thomas grasped for Hope's hand. She allowed him to take it. His fingers were chilly and shaking. She mumbled, I'm sorry, to Liam. He didn't respond. He simply turned and walked away. Down the aisle, past the strewn roses, past the life they'd nearly had. The wedding ended before it began. Weeks later, Hope sat in the empty cabin in Big Bear that Thomas had leased when they wanted to get away from it all. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Outside, snow fell in dense, quiet flakes. Thomas stood near the window, peering out into the whiteness. He hadn't touched her since their wedding. Not once. You didn't have to leave everything, he explained calmly. You're firm. Your family. Liam, I didn't leave them, Hope replied. I left the lie. He looked to her with troubled eyes. What if the deception is all that keeps us sane? She crossed the room and held his face in her hands. Then we'll be insane together. He kissed her for the first time. Not like Paris, frantic and snatched. This was slow and methodical like a pledge. But vows break. Months have passed. Hope for the future prospered under new leadership. Steffi refused to speak with her brother. Ridge alternated between pride and disappointment. Brooke sent letters that Hope could not bring herself to open. And Liam disappeared. Nobody knew where he had gone. Some mentioned Europe. Others mumbled rehab. The tabloids feasted on the scandal. Hope dumps groom at altar for obsessive ex-partner. Thomas designed in silence, his sketches deeper and sharper. Hope modeled when asked and smiled for the cameras, but her eyes were hollow. She found him in the studio at 3 a.m., surrounded by crumpled paper. I can't do this, he murmured without looking up. I can't be the reason you lost everything. You're not, she told me. I chose this. Did you? He eventually met her gaze. Or did you simply pick turmoil because it felt like home? The words landed like a slap. Spring arrived. Hope realized she was pregnant. When she told him, Thomas wept, not in delight but in horror. I can't be a father, he admitted. Not after everything I did to you. To Liam. She touched her stomach and whispered, You already are, Douglas. And you will be again. But the terror grew. Thomas withdrew. Nights he'd pace the flat, muttering about blunders and curses. Hope awoke to find him gone, only to find him hours later on the rooftop, looking at the city as if he wanted to leap. I'm poison, he murmured at morning, his voice hoarse. Everyone I love ends up broken. You're not, she said. We're just human. The baby arrived early. A girl. Thomas's black hair and Hope's eyes make him appear tiny and perfect. They named her Elizabeth after Hope's lost child, Beth. For a week they were satisfied. Thomas hugged his daughter as if she was made of glass. Hope watched them and realized for the first time that they had made it. Then the call arrived. Liam was dead. Overdose. Paris. They discovered him in a hotel room with a needle in his arm, and a photo of Hope gripped in one hand. The funeral was small. Spencer Publications kept things quiet. Bill Spencer did not glance at Hope when she came, cradling Elizabeth in a black sling. Thomas stood beside her, rigid. This is my fault, he murmured. No, she replied. They tried to continue. It's mine. But grief steals. Thomas stopped designing, stopped eating, stopped caressing her. Elizabeth wailed at night, and Hope rocked her alone while humming lullabies through tears. One evening Thomas prepared a bag. I'm going back to New York, he announced. You and Elizabeth deserve better than this. Than me. Hope shut the door. You do not get to leave again. Not now. Not ever. I am drowning her, he whispered, his voice shaking. Looking at her, I see Liam's spirit. I see every error I've ever made. I can't breathe, Hope. I cannot. She slapped him. Hard. Stop it, she hissed. Don't make this about your guilt. She needs you. I need you. We are not a tragedy, Thomas. We're a family. He collapsed to the floor sobbing. She hugged him until the sun rose. Years have passed. Elizabeth matured, fierce and gentle, with her father's fire and her mother's elegance. Thomas designed again slowly with softer lines. Hope rebuilt hope for the future from afar, mentoring young designers during video conversations. They never got married. The word seemed cursed. They returned to Big Bear on the anniversary of the wedding that never happened. They started a fire. They told Elizabeth true stories, rather than flowery ones. About love that hurts. About choices that left scars. About a guy who returned too late, and a lady who still picked him. One night Elizabeth, 6 years old, gap-toothed and solemn, asked, "Did Uncle Liam go to heaven because he was sad?" Hope's throat closed. Thomas kneeled beside her. "Yes, sweetheart," he answered. "But he isn't sad anymore. And Dad would want us to be happy." Elizabeth pondered this. Then she crawled into Hope's lap and whispered, "I think he forgives you." Hope cried quietly into her daughter's hair. Thomas placed his arms around both of them. Outside, snow fell, blanketing the world in white. Inside, the fire was low. They were not healed. They weren't entire. But they were together. The rain had been falling since the morning, soft and relentless, turning the roads into rivers and the air into glass. Hope stood at the window, her white dress shimmering slightly in the weak light. Outside, the wedding lawn was nearly empty, with only a few workmen racing back and forth, attempting to shield the chairs from the rain. The music had stopped hours ago. The visitors had gone inside, saying things they assumed she couldn't hear. Liam was upstairs, talking with the priest and making last-minute arrangements. Everything was perfect, or as perfect as a wet wedding could be. Hope had waited years for this day, clinging on, forgiving and trusting that love could overcome distance, betrayal and mistrust. She touched the window pane. Her reflection resembled a ghost peering back at her, pale, trembling and uncertain. The notion occurred again, the voice she had been attempting to suppress for weeks. "Are you certain?" Of course she was certain. Liam was good, polite and loyal. He was steadfast where she was erratic, kind where she was vulnerable. He had adored her even during her darkest moments. He had promised her eternity. But there was a darkness in her heart, the recollection of another voice, another pair of hands, another name that used to mean everything. Thomas. She hadn't said that name aloud in months. Not since he vanished. Not since he said farewell with eyes that did not match his words and a heart that was too proud to remain. People said he had moved abroad and started a new life somewhere far away. She had persuaded herself she was over him. But now, on the day she was due to devote her life to another man, the anguish returned like an old wound reopened in the rain. When Liam came down, he smiled, the same serene expression she had fell for. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you," she murmured softly. He took her hand and kissed her fingers, bringing warmth back to her flesh. He didn't notice how her gaze shifted to the door, as if she were expecting something unexpected. By afternoon, the rain had stopped. The ceremony began under a gray sky. The guests returned to their seats, their laughing quiet and their umbrellas closed. The pianist began playing. Hope walked down the aisle with her veil trailing behind her like mist. Every stride resonated in her chest. Liam stood there waiting. His expression was full of love. For a brief moment, everything else slipped away. Doubts, ghosts, and agony. All she saw was the man who had chosen her, and the life that awaited her. When the priest inquired if anyone had a reason to object, the audience went silent. Hope exhaled softly, finally believing it was actually finished, that she could let the past go. But then the church doors swing open. The sound rang like thunder. Heads turned. Hope froze. There he was. Thomas. He stood in the doorway, wet with rain, his eyes dark and frantic. The sight of him sliced through her like a dagger. Time lapsed. The air disappeared. She felt the world shift, every heartbeat sinking into the sound of his voice. "Don't do this," he advised. His voice shook, yet the words remained clear. "You can't marry him." The visitors let out gasps. Liam's face clenched as his jaw tightened. Hope could not move. Her bouquet slid from her hands and landed on the floor with a harsh thud. Thomas walked forward. disregarding the glances and whispers. His eyes was fixated solely on her. I tried to stay away, he explained. God knows I tried. But I can't see you devote yourself to someone else. Not while I still. His voice broke. Not when I still love you, the priest said, his expression confused. Liam turned to face Hope, his gaze seeking hers. Hope, he asked quietly, is there anything you want to say? The hush extended. Her throat clenched. Every memory of Thomas came flooding back. The evenings they'd stayed up chatting until dawn, the way he used to touch her face as if she were made of light, and the way he'd departed without explanation. She looked at Liam. He was everything she wanted, everything she needed. But love does not follow logic. It burns wherever it wants and destroys without asking. Tears collected in her eyes. Thomas, she muttered, you shouldn't be here. He moved closer. Then tell me to leave, he replied. Look at me and tell me you don't love me anymore. But she couldn't. The crowd grumbled. Liam's hands clenched. The priest closed the book carefully. Thomas's voice trembled. I've made mistakes. I believed I was doing the right thing by walking away. But I've been living with that option every day and it's killing me. I still see you in my dreams, Hope. I still wake up reaching for you. Her tears eventually flowed. You broke me, she said. You left when I needed you. I know, he corrected me. I've despised myself for it ever since. But if there's even a part of you that remembers us, if your heartbeat still feels like mine, don't say yes to him. Don't do it merely for safety. Liam took a step forward, his voice steady but shaking. Hope, he whispered softly, you do not have to do this now. If you need time. She shook her head, her breathing irregular. I don't know what I need. The rain started again with small drops tapping against the glass. Thomas took another stride. Just come with me, he replied. One final time. If you walk out that door and decide you want to return back, I will not stop you. But if you have any love left in you, even a flicker, don't bury it today. Her heart was hurting. She looked at Liam, whose eyes were filled with quiet agony, and at Thomas, whose face was raw with despair. Every part of her desired quiet. However, tranquility does not always result from making the right option. She took a step back. Then another. Her veil shook in the breeze. Then she ran. She had no idea where she was heading. All she knew was that she could not stay. She heard Liam's voice behind her, calling her name, and Thomas's footsteps close behind. The rain, the lights, and the sound of her heart all merged together. When she eventually stopped, they were outdoors in the deserted garden. The flowers were damaged, and the chairs were upturned. Thomas stood a few paces back, chest heaving. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he told me. She glanced at him through tears. You ruined everything. I know. He took another step. But maybe everything needed to break before it could be real again. She backed away, wrapping her arms around herself. You left me, she said quietly. You made me believe you'd stopped loving me. I never stopped, she replied. I left because I believed you would be better without me. I was mistaken. She closed her eyes. The rain dropped harder now, soaking both of them. Liam didn't deserve this, she explained. No, Thomas agreed. He didn't. He is a good dude. But he's not the one your heart is looking for. Hope opened her eyes. And you are. He did not respond. He only looked at her, as if the stillness itself were a response. They remained still for quite some time. The rain made the landscape silvery and calm. Hope's clothing clung to her flesh, saturated with wetness and sadness. When she finally spoke, it was barely audible. Thomas shook his head. It's too late. It's never too late for the truth. She gazed at him and something inside her burst out, not in anguish but in relief. She took a step forward, pushed her forehead against his chest, and they remained there for a while as if they had been drowning for years and had suddenly discovered how to breathe. However, love cannot solve all problems. Sometimes it's simply a wound that refuses to heal. Her gaze changed as she pulled away, becoming softer and sadder. I love you, she stated. I always have. But loving you has cost me too much. He looked at her, puzzled. I can't go back, she explained. Even if I wanted to. Too many people have been injured. I can't build a life on what we have left, Thomas said, his face crushed. So what are you saying? I'm saying goodbye. She turned and went away, her dress dragging in the mud, her heart hurting with each step. Thomas did not follow. He just watched her go into the rain, becoming nothing more than a blur of white in the distance. Later, after the guests had left and the lights had burnt low, Liam saw her sitting alone in the chapel, still in her bridal gown, the ring untouched on the table beside her. He did not speak at first. He simply sat next to her, his hand resting lightly against hers. I'm sorry, she replied. I know, he responded. You didn't deserve any of this, he said, smiling little and tiredly. Perhaps not. But I still love you. She stared at him with tears in her eyes. That's what makes it worse. He nodded. I know. Outside, the storm had passed. The morning arrived slow and gray. Hope persisted until the light shifted and the silence became too much to bear. She stood, took one last look at the altar, and walked out into the fresh day, having no idea where she was heading but knowing she had to keep walking. Days progressed into weeks. The wedding had been cancelled, Thomas had gone missing again, and Hope had fled the city. People whispered their versions of the narrative, with each missing the point. The truth was simpler and sadder. Thomas traveled north alone, traveling from town to town. Sometimes he thought he saw her, in a passing crowd, a shadow by the sea, but it was always a trick of the light. He held her memory as a scar, a reminder of the one thing he could never change. Hope relocated to a quiet coastal town where nobody remembered her name. She rented a cabin near the river and spent her days painting, hoping to express her grief through color and solitude. Some nights she'd stand on the beach and stare at the horizon until her vision blurred, wondering if he was looking at the same sea. Neither of them found peace, really, but they learned to live with the pain. Years later, she got a letter that contained no return address. It simply had one sentence. I hope you found the life you deserved. She cried for a long time that night, not because it was painful, but because it was finally over. Love does not always end with wrath or betrayal. Sometimes it ends with two individuals realizing that even the most resilient hearts may break in subtle, gentle ways. In another existence, perhaps the one they both imagined, she said yes. But not in this one. In this case, she walked away. The rain kept falling.